The photograph seemed impossibly innocent. A young boy, perhaps 6 years old, sat on wooden steps clutching a small teddy bear to his chest. His eyes gazed directly at the camera with an expression of quiet contentment. His clothes were worn but clean, his hair neatly combed. The image, dated May 1945, had been discovered in a box of uncatalogued photographs donated to the Berlin State Archives in March 2024. For weeks, it sat among thousands of other post-war images: displaced persons, rubble-filled streets, refugee camps. When archivist Dr. Stefan Weber began digitizing the collection, this particular photograph caught his attention for its apparent normalcy. But when he examined it at high resolution, zooming in on the details, he discovered something that transformed this image of childhood innocence into evidence of unspeakable horror. The following story is a work of realistic fiction, inspired by true historical events regarding the Holocaust, liberation of concentration camps, child survivors, and post-war documentation. Dr. Stefan Weber had been processing Holocaust-related materials for 15 years. He thought he'd seen everything: liberation photos, survivor testimonies, Nazi documentation, evidence photographs from war crimes trials. But something about this image unsettled him in a way he couldn't immediately identify. The photo was taken in May 1945, just weeks after Germany's surrender. The location appeared to be a displaced persons camp or temporary refugee facility. The wooden barracks steps where the boy sat were typical of such places. The photographer was likely military, possibly American or British, documenting conditions and survivors. The boy himself looked surprisingly healthy for a Holocaust survivor. His face had some roundness, suggesting he'd been receiving adequate food for at least a few weeks. His clothes, though old and ill-fitting, were clean. Someone had been caring for him. His hair had been recently cut in a simple, practical style, and he held a teddy bear, brown, worn, missing one eye, but clearly precious to the child. The bear was clutched tightly against his chest with both arms, the universal gesture of a child protecting something beloved. Stefan began the digitization process, setting the scanner to maximum resolution. While the machine hummed, he examined the handwritten notation on the back of the print. DP Camp, Bavaria, May 1945. Child number 247. No name, no family located. Age approximately 6 years. Child number 247. Not a name. Just a number in a system trying to process thousands of displaced children, many orphaned, all traumatized. When the scan completed, Stefan opened the file and began his systematic examination. He started with the boy's face, zooming until individual features resolved with startling clarity. The eyes were large, dark, brown or possibly hazel. There was no smile, but no obvious distress either. Just a kind of blank acceptance, an expression Stefan had seen in countless survivor photographs. The look of someone who had learned not to expect much from the world. He moved to examine the boy's hands, wrapped around the teddy bear. They were small, thin, the hands of a child who'd been malnourished but was recovering. And there, on the left forearm, barely visible beneath the rolled sleeve of the boy's shirt, Stefan saw something that made his stomach drop. A tattoo. He zoomed in further, adjusting brightness and contrast. The image resolved with heartbreaking clarity. A number tattooed in dark ink on pale skin. A dash 18534. Stefan sat back, his hands shaking. This wasn't just any Holocaust survivor. This was an Auschwitz survivor. The A-series tattoos had been used at Auschwitz for specific prisoner registrations in 1944. The fact that this child had been tattooed at all was extraordinary. Most children arriving at Auschwitz were murdered immediately in the gas chambers. Those who were tattooed had been selected for forced labor or medical experiments. This 6-year-old boy holding a teddy bear had survived Auschwitz. But that wasn't what made Stefan's breath catch in his throat. It was what he noticed next, when he zoomed in on the teddy bear itself. There, partially hidden by the boy's arm but visible upon close examination, was something sewn into the bear's fabric. Something that had been there all along, invisible for 79 years, waiting to be discovered. A yellow star. A Jewish star. Carefully removed from clothing and hidden inside the teddy bear's fabric. Stefan enhanced the image of the teddy bear, adjusting every parameter to reveal maximum detail. What he discovered was both heartbreaking and extraordinary. The bear itself was old, probably dating from before the war. Its brown fur was matted and worn, its stitching coming apart in places. But someone had made careful repairs, inexpert stitching holding the bear together, patches of different fabric covering holes. And incorporated into those patches, Stefan could now see, were pieces of a yellow Star of David. The star had been cut into small pieces and sewn into the bear's body, not as decoration, but as concealment. A way to preserve this symbol of identity while keeping it hidden from those who would have destroyed it. Stefan contacted Dr. Rachel Stein, a specialist in Holocaust material culture at Yad Vashem. He sent her the enhanced images and waited anxiously for her response. She called within hours. "Stefan, this is extraordinary. Do you understand what you're looking at? A child with an Auschwitz tattoo holding a teddy bear with a hidden Jewish star? More than that. Look at the stitching. Look at how the star fragments are incorporated into the bear's repairs. This wasn't done after liberation. This was done during the war, probably before deportation. Someone, likely the child's mother, hid the star inside the bear before they were taken. The bear went with the child through everything." Stefan Hukostaon felt tears in his eyes. Through Auschwitz? Impossible to say for certain, but the bear survived somehow. Maybe it was taken during the initial separation, and the child recovered it after liberation. Maybe it was hidden with non-Jewish friends and returned. But the fact remains, this bear, with its hidden star, survived the Holocaust alongside this child. Stefan zoomed in again, this time examining every inch of the photograph. He noticed something else he'd missed. On the wooden steps beside the boy, partially visible, was a small card. He enhanced that section. It was an identification card from the displaced persons camp. He could just make out partial text. Child number 247. Origin, Auschwitz. Liberation, April 1945. Family, unknown. Religion, Hebrew. April 1945. The boy had been at Auschwitz until the very end, until the camp was evacuated ahead of Soviet liberation. He'd survived not just Auschwitz, but the death marches that followed. "Rachel," Stefan said slowly, "we need to identify this child. We need to know who he was, what happened to him. The tattoo number is A-18534. That's a starting point. Auschwitz records for a series tattoos are incomplete but existent. Cross-reference with DP camp records from Bavaria, May 1945. Look for a boy approximately 6 years old. It's possible. And if we find him, then we give him his story back. We tell the world that this child, this brave, traumatized child holding his teddy bear in May 1945, survived the unsurvivable. That his mother's love survived in the form of a hidden star sewn into a toy. That symbols of identity and hope persisted even in hell. Stefan began the search. What he would discover would connect this photograph to one of the most remarkable survival stories of the Holocaust, and to a man still alive in 2024, finally able to tell his truth. The search took 3 weeks of intensive work across multiple archives. Stefan started with Auschwitz records, cross-referencing tattoo number A18534 with transport lists, prisoner registrations, and liberation documents. The number had been assigned in May 1944 to a child from Hungary during the massive deportation of Hungarian Jews to Auschwitz. Over 400,000 Hungarian Jews were sent to Auschwitz between May and July 1944. Most were murdered immediately. But some children, particularly those who appeared older or healthier, were selected for forced labor or kept alive for other reasons. Working with the Arolsen archives in Germany, Stefan found a registration card, a -18534, male child, registered May 28, 1944. Age recorded 5 years. Origin, transport from Munkacs, Hungary. Munkacs, a town in what was then Hungary, now Ukraine, home to a large Jewish population before the war, virtually destroyed by the Holocaust. Stefan found the DP camp records from Bavaria, May 1945. Among hundreds of entries, he located child number 247. Male, approximately age 6, Hebrew, arrived from Dachau subcamps April 30, 1945. No family located. No name given by child. Non-verbal. Assigned number for administrative purposes. Non-verbal. The child hadn't spoken, whether from trauma, or because he'd forgotten language, or because he had nothing to say to a world that had taken everything. Then Stefan found the crucial document, a transfer record from June 1945. Child number 247 transferred to Jewish Children's Home Munich. Child has begun speaking. Name given. Michael. Just Michael. No surname. Either he'd forgotten it, or was too young when deported to remember, or chose not to share it. Stefan contacted the organization that had operated the Munich Children's Home, now dissolved but with records preserved at the Jewish Museum Munich. After days of searching, they found Michael's file. The file contained medical records, psychological evaluations, and notes from caregivers. One note from July 1945 read, "Michael will not be separated from a teddy bear. Becomes distressed if anyone attempts to take it. Bear is falling apart, but clearly provides crucial emotional security. Recommend allowing him to keep it." Another note from September 1945. Michael has revealed that his bear was a gift from his mother before deportation. Says his mother told him the bear would keep his heart safe. Michael believes his mother's love is inside the bear. The file documented Michael's slow recovery, learning to speak again, to trust, to play with other children. By early 1946, he'd been placed with a foster family in Munich. By 1949, records showed the family had emigrated to the United States. Stefan found emigration records. Michael Steinberg. He'd taken his foster family's surname. Age 10. Departing Bremen for New York, August 1949. From there, the trail went cold until Stefan found a newspaper article from 1985. A New York Times feature on Holocaust survivors. Michael Steinberg, 46, a successful architect in Manhattan, is one of the youngest survivors of Auschwitz. He was 5 years old when deported with his family in 1944. He alone survived. Stefan searched current records. Michael Steinberg, architect, was still listed at a Manhattan address. Age 85 in 2024. He was alive. In April 2024, Stefan flew to New York. He'd contacted Michael Steinberg through an intermediary, explaining carefully what he'd found. Michael had agreed to meet. The apartment overlooking Central Park was filled with light and books. Michael Steinberg was a small man, with white hair and sharp, intelligent eyes. He moved slowly but purposefully as he welcomed Stefan inside. "You said you found a photograph," Michael said quietly, his English carrying a faint accent that mixed German, Hungarian, and American influences. Stefan opened his laptop. "Before I show you, I need to ask, do you remember a teddy bear?" Michael's eyes filled with tears immediately. "Every day of my life." "Do you still have it?" "No. It fell apart in the early 1950s. I was heartbroken. My foster mother tried to repair it, but it was beyond saving. We buried it in the garden of our house in Munich before we left for America. I wanted to bring my mother with me in some way." Stefan showed him the photograph. Michael stared at the screen, his hand trembling as he reached out to touch the image. "That's me," he whispered. "May 1945. They'd given me that bear shortly after liberation. Someone found it in a storage room where confiscated items had been kept. I recognized it immediately. My mother had given it to me the morning the Germans came. She said, 'Your heart will stay safe inside the bear.'" "There's something else," Stefan said gently. He zoomed in on the hidden star fragments. "Your mother sewed pieces of your family's yellow star into the bear's fabric. She hid your identity inside the toy." Michael wept. After several minutes, he spoke. "I never knew. I held that bear every day for 8 years, and I never knew my mother had done that. She gave me a piece of our Jewish identity disguised as a child's toy. She knew they would take everything else, but they might let a child keep a teddy bear." "Michael, can you tell me what you remember?" Over the next 3 hours, Michael shared his story. He'd been 5 when deported from Munkac with his parents, older sister, and younger brother. All except Michael were murdered within days of arrival at Auschwitz. He survived by chance, selected for a children's medical block, used for experiments that somehow he survived. The bear had been taken during initial processing, but he'd found it in April 1945 in a storage facility at a Dachau subcamp during the chaos of liberation. "I held that bear, and I knew my mother was still with me. I didn't know about the star, but I felt her love in it. That bear was the only thing that kept me human during those months after liberation, when I couldn't speak, couldn't feel, couldn't understand that I was supposed to be alive." Stefan arranged for the photograph to be exhibited at the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum. Michael attended the opening in June 2024. Beside the photograph was Michael's testimony, recorded and preserved, and a replica of the teddy bear, created based on the photograph, with visible Star of David fragments sewn into its fabric. The exhibit label read, "A mother's love, hidden in plain sight, survived Auschwitz." The child holding this bear survived too. This is Michael's story. The 1945 photograph of a boy holding a teddy bear looked innocent until digital magnification revealed an Auschwitz tattoo on his arm and fragments of a Jewish star hidden in the bear's fabric. The boy was Michael Steinberg, age 5 when deported from Hungary, the sole survivor of his family. His mother had sewn their yellow star into his teddy bear before deportation, preserving their identity through the Holocaust. Michael survived Auschwitz, carried the bear through liberation, and kept it until it fell apart in the 1950s. At age 85, he finally learned of his mother's hidden gift of love and identity.